Welcome back inside the BT studio. Steve Irwin, he loves what he does. He's been doing it for 30 years. He is a geologist. We're looking at the seismometer, the impact of any vibration of how we read it. So we're just going to start this off with the basic rock. Steve, welcome, by the way.
Thank you, Riaz.
Pound. Weight of this rock?
About a pound and a half.
Okay, so I'm going to drop it because there's like a 2-second delay to pick up on this monitor right here. And what does this tell us?
So that's the seismometer is picking up the vibration in the ground that results from dropping a rock on it. Normally, we're using these, we've got these deployed across Canada, and we're using them to monitor the Earth for movement. We know them as earthquakes. The Earth is constantly moving. We get over 1,000 earthquakes a year in Canada, but only about a dozen of them do we feel. So like one a month. We just had one off Port Hardy. Last week. This
tweet was just released on social media. You may have seen this, and is that what it is? A device like this picking up this type of movement?
So these are identical to the devices we have across Canada. They're monitored by Natural Resources Canada, and they're operating 24/7. And they're very sensitive to all types of vibrations. The ones we deploy across Canada, the word we use is they're so sensitive they'll pick a chicken pecking on the ground 20 feet away.
We didn't have a chicken for this segment right here,
so I didn't bring a chicken in this early. But basically, these seismometers will pick up earthquakes anywhere in the world. So if there's one in the South Pacific or in Alaska, or even in our backyard, these will pick them up.
That's incredible. So even something like with the sandbag and the drop, everyone is always wondering, I'm just going to drop this for the exercise of what it picks up. When you get this data, what does this tell you? Because we're always worrying, is the big one coming?
Right.
With 1,000 earthquakes, what do we learn from that?
So basically what we're using these seismometers for is because we've got a number of them, we can pinpoint the location on the Earth, where they're occurring exactly, also how deep they are, because that's also an important factor on how much damage might result from these earthquakes when they happen. If an earthquake happens a long ways away from us, by the time that energy gets to us, it's going to be dissipated, so there won't be as much ground motion. But if something happens nearby and very shallow, there's going to be a lot more shaking and potentially a lot more damage. And so that helps us plan for earthquake preparedness. It also helps us better understand what happens when the Earth moves and when the ground shakes. So we have seismologists that study the actual earthquakes as well as monitor for when they happen. And then that's when the emergency managers kick in, and when they help us be better prepared for earthquakes, which will happen. We don't know when, we just know that they will happen.
And these devices that we see on the ground, how many of those are positioned all across our country?
We've got about this type and another type. In total, we've got about 450 of them. So they're in our backyard here, but they're all over Canada. And those are picking up both Canadian earthquakes and earthquakes around the world. And there's two types. There's this type of broadband, and then there's a strong motion sensor. And the strong motion sensor works when it's closer to the source. And the strong motion picks up the secondary waves, which are the more damaging waves, and those waves and those characteristics engineers use to incorporate into building codes, which make our buildings stronger. So the buildings that are going up across the street, they're built to modern seismic code based on the seismology and the seismic science that goes into monitoring these earthquakes, and that's what Natural Resources Canada does.
A lot more safer with all the movement going on. Well, listen, your chance to learn more, Discovery Day Convention Center this Sunday. You will be there, what, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.? Yeah, 10
a.m. to 2 p.m. is part of AME's Roundup. They have a public Discovery Day that's open to us, everyone. I'll be there with our seismometer. There's lots of other things. There's gold panning. There's information about where minerals go into our world, how they're extracted, and it should be a fun day for everybody to come out and come down and see us down at the convention center.
A lot of great things to learn. Steve, thanks so much.
Thanks, Riaz.
Been doing it 30 years, first time on TV. Glad we could share the moment.
Thanks, Riaz.
All right, listen, Greg Harper, live on location this morning.